Welcome to EVTN News, Eternal Vegan Television Network. And next Sunday starts Advent, so are you prepared? Prepare for Advent. Use this week. And I know Ryan and I had a video about gluttony. I think that was about a year ago. He preached a sermon on YouTube about gluttony. So just be careful during Thanksgiving. And we're going to start right out. Pope Francis, during a November 12th audience to participants at a plenary assembly of the Dicastery for Communication, Pope Francis mentioned Father James Martin, who was present at the meeting. I see James Martin here. Ah, yes, this one is a worker. Yes, but he wrote a book called Learning to Pray. Read it because it teaches you how to pray. This is a man who has values, a communicator who also knows how to teach you the way to communicate with God. To be a communicator is this: to go, to walk, to risk with values, convinced that I am giving my life with values, Christian values, and human values. What do you think about that? So he praised Father James Martin. He met with him quite a few times too, but now I come right out in support of him. That's the Jesuit thing to do. Yikes, not good. Another newsworthy item. The Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. announced its annual youth rally and Mass for Life, which both typically take place in conjunction with the National March for Life in Washington, D.C., have been canceled. So the youth rally and the Mass for Life have been canceled. A statement from the Archdiocese of Washington says, after a consultation process that involved dialogue with other dioceses, ministry leaders, and the partners who assist the Archdiocese in hosting the annual rally and Mass, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Washington has decided not to move forward with hosting the larger multi-diocese rally. All right, the Mass for Life was a big deal, and hopefully some of the area churches that have Catholic priests there, hopefully they will have masses, but that's pretty disappointing and not surprising coming from the Archdiocese of Washington. If you've been following them for the past, well, I don't know, how long have I been alive? Especially the news with the McCarrick stuff, and yeah. Anyway. All right, Catholic homeschooling mom of 11, Jane Bernardell, was arrested in October 2020 on the steps of her parish church. This was in Kansas City, for not wearing something over her face while praying the rosary, even though she and her family were suitably socially distanced from everyone else in the church. So trespass in October 2020, yeah, we see that, and it's not good. Even after civil authorities dropped all charges against her, Jane is still being targeted by her bishop for no reason. After being formally rebuked by Kansas City Bishop James Johnston, the faithful Catholic mother has now been banned from entering any diocesan property whatsoever. Well, what a great time to find an SSPX parish. You can read more about that on the Life site, but that's pretty interesting. I don't know the full story behind that. Have to watch it and see, I guess. Okay, English. Thanks for joining the live stream, by the way. Bishop John Arnold of Salford Diocese in England. He made some comments, and LifeSite actually, I guess they interviewed him or asked him some questions, and he responded. Well, credit to him for responding, but the answers were kind of questionable. Pope Francis, he said, Bishop John Arnold of Salford Diocese in England said, Pope Francis asks us to welcome everybody and to accept people as they are, made in the image of God. And I think the Mass should focus primarily on the message of the scriptures of the day. So this was about an LMNOP Mass. I think the Mass should focus primarily on the message of the scriptures of the day that we are concerned about the ongoing conversion of all of us. When you have an LMNOP Mass, there are an awful lot of people who aren't LMNOP or who are there because they're family and friends, and who are merely concerned to be there in solidarity. We say that the gospel teaching in its fullness certainly includes questions of sexuality and celibacy, but let's form a community where people feel welcome, that they're being encouraged to be part of the church with all of us, and none of us is perfect, and to be on that road of conversion to what God wants us all to be, and that we will decipher in different ways according to who we are. I don't think there's a need for an LMNOP Mass simply to be about a homily on celibacy. That doesn't make sense to me at all. Alright, so I think the problem is they're trying too hard to make people feel welcome. And let's see, none of us is perfect. That's what they say constantly. No one's perfect, right? Yeah, but there are certain people who are concerned with repenting of their sins, not embracing it. That's the big difference. Oh, this is a good story. Bishop Howard Hubbard has petitioned Pope Francis for laicization. He was the former Bishop of Albany, New York, 84 years old, and he is facing allegations of sexually abusing minors and has admitted to knowingly reassigning abuser priests and failing to report instances of abuse to law enforcement. Hubbard retired as diocesan bishop of Albany in 2014. He was accused in 2019 of sexually abusing a teenage boy in the 1990s and in 2020 of abusing a minor on a parish bus in 1975. The bishop has denied both charges, but in addition to civil lawsuits, he is facing a Vatican-ordered investigation under the norms of Vos Estis Lux Mundi, which is being conducted by the Archdiocese of New York. Sources close to the Albany Diocese have told the Pillar that Hubbard has asked for a specific dispensation from the obligation of clerical celibacy and intends to marry once laicized. Okay, here's the funny part. The same sources told the Pillar that the bishop has begun a relationship with a woman several decades his junior. I mean, he's like, well, all right, well, I'm kind of living with a woman, so I'd really like to get married. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, seriously. And you also can't make up the German bishops, and there's a lot with the German bishops. So they met with Vatican officials recently on Friday. Friday's meeting, held in Rome, was presided over by the Secretary of State, Italian Cardinal Pietro Parolin. According to the Vatican statement, Parolin in his opening remarks pointed to the bond of communion and love that unites the bishops among themselves and with the successor of Peter, and he also stressed the importance of the meeting as a moment of sharing and grace, of unity in differences. So Pope Francis was not in this meeting, but he was in another meeting. Parolin also voiced concern over certain elements of the German Church's synodal path, cautioning against the risk of carrying out reforms of the Church and not in the Church. Reforms of the Church and not in the Church. In his own remarks, Bishop Georg Batzing of Limburg, president of the German Bishops' Conference, outlined the work of the synodal path thus far and stressed its guiding spirit as being rooted in listening to the people of God and on the pain of the abuses committed by members of the clergy. That's their excuse for heresy. He highlighted the topics discussed in the synodal path assemblies thus far, listing them as power and division of powers in the Church, common participation in missionary planning, priestly life today, women in church ministries and offices, and living in relationships at work. Living, love, and sexuality, and in the couple relationship. After Batzing finished, theological reports were then made by Cardinal Luis Ladaria, prefect of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith, and Cardinal Mark Ouellet, prefect of the Dicastery for Bishops, both of whom spoke frankly and clearly about the concerns and reservations relating to the methodology, contents, and proposals of the synodal path. So there was dissent here by Cardinal Ouellet and Cardinal Ladaria. They spoke frankly, so they got a very they got a little bit of pushback. The German bishops did from the Vatican. Wow, impressive. According to the Vatican statement, Ladaria and Ouellet proposed, for the benefit of the unity of the Church in her evangelizing mission, that requests made as part of the German synodal path be folded into the broader ongoing synod on synodality. Okay, so they didn't condemn the German synodal path. They said, well, let's just make this part of the overall synodal path. Well, there you go. In the open dialogue between German bishops and curial officials that followed, the importance and also the urgency of defining and deepening in some of the themes highlighted was stressed, specifically in regards to church structures, priestly ministry and access to the priesthood, and Christian anthropology. To this end, a proposal was made of applying a moratorium on the German synodal path. However, this proposal was rejected, but rather further, reflection and mutual listening in light of the perplexities was encouraged. The meeting ended, this is great. The meeting ended, according to the Vatican, not with a clear decision, but with an agreement to continue listening and mutual dialogue in the coming months as the German synodal path moves forward. So basically, nothing happened. They just presented their sides of the views, or they presented their views, their sides of the story, and that's that. And then, well, we're going to continue to dialogue. Well, here's the problem. You can't dialogue with schismatics. I mean, I guess the only dialogue should be a request for them to convert to the Catholic faith. Pope Francis met with the German bishops on Thursday, and he spoke longer than planned. According to the bishops' conference, the meeting, which lasted about 2 hours, was described by the participants as lively, open, and cordial. There you go, more dialogue, more accompaniment. In contrast to the other appointments during the 5-day ad limina visit, the translation was not carried out simultaneously by interpreters, but sequentially by an employee of the State Secretariat. Unlike most meetings this week, which took place in an auditorium a few meters from the Vatican, the bishop's reception of the Pope took place in the hall of the Apostolic Palace. According to the bishops' conference, the long exchange included considerations on pastoral care in changing times, the self-image of the priestly and episcopal office, and the role of laity in the church, and the same things they talked about with the Vatican officials. As in previous discussions with the Dicastery for Evangelization, the question of how to proclaim the Christian message successfully in a world increasingly alienated from the church and her traditions was also discussed. The issue of war and peace in view of the situation in Eastern Europe was also raised. So who knows what else was discussed over the 2 hours, but the translation was not available. One of the translations that was available, hopefully you checked out some of my USCCB coverage. There really wasn't a whole lot. The bishops decided to, here's some of the highlights, not a whole lot. The bishops decided to begin rewriting their Catholic voting guide after 2024 election. So based on some of the comments that some of the bishops made, it really seems like this Francis Church is a different religion. And if you don't believe me, watch the videos and see. I guess one of the highlights or the lowlights was Bishop Dolan, the new bishop of Phoenix, who said, it's really a 30-second video clip, watch it, but I'll repeat similar to what he said. He said he received a pamphlet of from the USCCB in the mail, and he looked through it, and there were some quotes from popes, but none from Pope Francis, so he threw it away. Like I said, different religion. Cardinal McElroy of San Diego, and I hate to say Cardinal McElroy, but anyway, encouraged the bishops to endorse World War III and many of the bishops applauded in response. And the Eucharistic revival was cut in. The Eucharistic revival budget was cut in half by two. It was cut in half to 14 million by 14 million, whatever. It was cut. Now the expense is 14 million. So there you go. I do want to go over the election, the USCCB elections, which really, what authority, I don't know, what does the USCCB actually do? Like, what impact does it actually have on Catholicism? Not a whole lot, but I mean, these are, you're going to get statements from the USCCB based on who's in a leadership position. So Archbishop Timothy Broglio of the military services won the election. It was a pretty big win for him. They have like their certain election procedures, and at first he got a lot of the votes, and then they had to have multiple elections, but so he won, and so he's not. I mean, people were saying he was like the left was outraged because he upholds the church doctrine on LMNOP. He said that LMNOP priests could be responsible, or it could be problematic in regards to abuse, and so they call him like ultra right wing. I don't think so. I think he's definitely a moderate, but at least he's not a far leftist, which is there were a few of those in the running. The vice president is Archbishop Lori of Baltimore. He is the chaplain for the Knights of Columbus, and based on their financial statements, he receives, let me think about this, $135,000 a year from the Knights of Columbus. That's in addition to his bishop's salary, so yeah. But anyway, he's the vice president of the USCCB. He says some pro-life things, and that's that. So, okay, yay. Let's see. The chairman on the committee, and I don't think you really care too much about these committees, but I think it's important to highlight this stuff. The chairman for the Committee on Priorities and Plans for the USCCB, this vote was between Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City and Cardinal Joseph Tobin of Newark. Some of you know him as Nighty Night Tobin. And Coakley won. The vote was 130 to 104. I think that's incredibly significant. Okay, Burbage won. Rocky. Oh, I'm back. Can you cut off for a second? Sorry about that. Paparocki won the Committee on Canonical Affairs and Church Governance. All right, so Committee on Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs. Now we're getting into the waste of resources at the USCCB. Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs is a bunch of garbage. It was won by Bishop Bambera. There's not a lot of good information on him. George Neumeyer, kind of tune into what George Neumeyer has said about Bishop Bambera. Not great. Okay, Evangelization and Catechesis won by Archbishop Thompson of Indianapolis. Justice International Committee on International Justice and Peace. This is interesting too. So, Bishop Elias Zaydan of the Eparchy of Our Lady of Lebanon of Los Angeles was chosen for this committee over Archbishop Nelson Perez of Philadelphia, and it wasn't even close. It was 148 to 95. To me, that's really a surprise because, Archbishop Perez, he was seen as like kind of a young, like up-and-coming superstar when Pope Francis appointed him as Archbishop of Philadelphia. He was, however, passed over as cardinal a few times, I believe, in what was once pretty much a staple that the bishop there in Philadelphia would become a cardinal. Bishop Zaydan, I don't know much about him, but this is the eparchy of the Maronites. It's the only Maronite. So the eparchy is the Eastern Rite, what the Eastern Rite Catholics call a diocese. Um, it is the only eparchy in the United States for the Maronites. And so this is interesting. I don't know anything about what the Committee on International Justice and Peace does. Probably talks about promoting World War III. But so McElroy would be great for that. Right? Justice and peace. Um, certainly, let's give more weapons to people overseas, and um, that'll help promote peace, right? But the Maronite rite, from what I have seen in the like on videos, I don't know. It reminds me a lot of the Novus Ordo. I mean, it's kind of sad. I'd really like them to stick to their traditions. All right, here's an outrage for you. Bishop Barry Nestout of Richmond, Virginia, was won the vote for the Committee on Protection of Children and Young People over Auxiliary Bishop Elias Lorenzo of Newark, New Jersey. So Nestout was a former secretary of McCarrick, and this is let me repeat this: protection of children and young people. Okay. Bishop Elias Lorenzo was from Newark, New Jersey, who was in Cardinal Tobin's diocese. So, of another former, is it an archdiocese? I believe so. Another former archdiocese of McCarrick. So, there you go. There you go. Definitely standing for protection of young people. All right, and Bishop Kevin Rhodes handily defeated Archbishop Coeur de Leon by a vote of 165 to 77. Coeur de Leon didn't get a lot of support here. He was in the running for the president of the USCCB, and he got like no votes. I mean, he might have gotten like 5 or so. I don't know if they see him as too extreme, because he's not. I mean, I'd consider him more of a moderate. Actually, none of the bishops are. I don't know that I really consider very many of the bishops, if any, conservative. Maybe Strickland and Conley. And I don't know. There's not many. I don't know if Archbishop Gullickson goes to these or not. Probably not. He's retired. He's like, I don't care about this stuff. I think so. I do want to focus just slightly on the Tobin vote. So let me see. So Tobin lost to Archbishop Coakley. Coakley was one of the few bishops who publicly supported Coeur de Leon's ban on communion for Pelosi, and has described the motivation behind the movement where men pretend to be women and women pretend to be men. He described that as demonic. So that's pretty interesting. It shows that the McCarrick network is really not. There's not much support among the USCCB for the McCarrick guys. Now Nestout, he kind of snuck through. I don't know what happened, but a cardinal losing to an archbishop in a vote, that's pretty unprecedented. And I know a lot of the leftist commentators saw that as a rejection of Pope Francis, which, hey, I mean, whatever, Now, let me get this live chat up. I'm missing something, a part of my chiropractic home care. Okay, prayers for St. Anthony. Institute or FSSP. Where can I get a hat like yours, St. Benedict? I got this on Amazon. I mean, you can find them really expensive. They're pretty expensive on a lot of other places, but Amazon's definitely where it's at. And I figure, hey, wear it and show off my support for the Catholic faith. Anyway, it's what, Thanksgiving week, Advent's coming up. I may have some life changes coming up. Don't know. We'll see. And with that, I'm really considering changes to this channel. I know EVTN's nice, but I don't know. It's just it really is getting tiresome, I have to say. And I'm not complaining. I'm doing this anyway, you get it. I covered the USCCB meeting. That's not fun, not enjoyable, but I get you guys the information. Really, it's just a lot of negative news. Like this Latin Mass was banned, this other one was banned. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. Stay tuned to this channel. I have some ideas, but we'll see what ends up happening. Okay, this has been EVTN News. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.